Hi everyone, welcome to the Live Longer World podcast. I am your host, Astha Jain. On this podcast, I have conversations with scientists and entrepreneurs that are transforming the field of longevity science. If you wish to stay notified of upcoming podcast releases and sign up for my newsletter, head over to livelongerworld.com. And if you want to receive extensive show notes and transcripts from each episode, you can sign up to be a premium member at livelongerworld.com/premium. My guest today is Dr. Bruce Ames. You've probably heard of his name as he is famous for developing the Ames test, which can detect carcinogens in commercial products. In fact, he rallied to get carcinogens removed from products such as children's pajamas and hair dyes in the 1980s. But Dr. Ames did not stop there. He went on to develop the micronutrient triage theory, which talks about how a deficiency in micronutrients can have important long-term consequences, such as accelerated rates of aging. So Dr. Ames is now 93 years old, but he is still exercising and eating healthy food cooked by his lovely Italian wife. We spoke about the importance of longevity micronutrients and also the importance of vitamin D for healthy aging. And finally, I also got to ask him his advice for younger folks and scientists, since he said he switched careers or switched scientific fields every 10 to 15 years. So I hope you enjoy my conversation with Dr. Ames. Hello, Dr. Bruce. Thank you so much for your time again, and welcome to the Live Longer World podcast. I'm so excited to be talking to you today. I have to say, all your work around micronutrient triage theory and longevity vitamins has had such a huge impact on my life, and I've been trying to spread the word on it. And in fact, ever since I learned about it, I changed up my diet, and I've never felt better. So thanks again for all the work you've done there. So, Dr. Ames, I think why don't we get started by talking about your work around micronutrient triage theory? I know you've mentioned how a lot of people think about vitamins and minerals from a very short-term perspective, but you talk about how we should be viewing them as longevity vitamins and minerals. It would be great if you could elaborate a bit on that.
Yeah. Well, the body has all kinds of defense systems. There are 50 different enzymes creeping along your DNA looking for a bump that shouldn't be there. So if you get damage to your DNA, then when it divides, you can make mutations. And the body is faced with there are 35 known vitamins and essential minerals that we need to get in our diet if they're used in our metabolism. And we've suggested 11 new ones that hasn't been accepted yet. The committees have to meet and things. But anyway, I'm sure these are going to be added on. And so if you're short of any of them, you're in trouble. If you don't have any magnesium coming in, magnesium is needed in a few hundred enzymes in your cells. And zinc, people don't think about zinc a lot, but there's something called zinc fingers in metabolism that recognizes DNA sequences. And 2,000 enzymes require zinc, otherwise they don't work. And so nutrition, I have turned into a nutritionist in my old age. I was interested in gene regulation and then gradually found myself in nutrition. The body, what happens if you have limited magnesium in your diet or limited zinc? Well, zinc is in 2,000 different enzymes, but what nature is built in, and I suggested this many years ago and we've had a few updates on it, is that what nature does is it does a strategic rationing. So if it wants to put the zinc in enzymes that are essential for survival, so you don't die. If you feed an animal with no zinc, it'll die. And so I wrote a paper, I called it Triage, this rationing. So what's logical is that nature puts it into those essentially for survival and starves those enzymes that need the zinc for long-term use. So basically, you age faster. So you're trading a long life for not dying now.
So short term, it doesn't have such a detrimental impact, but in the long term, you see the onset of a lot of age-related diseases because of these deficiencies.
Yeah. So altogether, there may be 40 substances you need in your diet. So you need to eat green vegetables because chlorophyll has magnesium in it, and you need to eat whole nuts and all sorts of things, and a varied diet, so you get everything. But anyway, so I've been dabbling in nutrition the last few years.
So what have you seen in terms of the link between having these micronutrient deficiencies and the acceleration of aging? So I think one thing you spoke about was also the immune system becoming weaker because of deficiencies in vitamins and minerals. Can you talk about how it accelerates aging and different diseases?
Yeah, so metabolism is all chemistry going on in your body. You eat sugar and it gets turned into energy. You burn it. And so there are all these processes that you need to have an active person. And what I introduced is the idea that shortages are really dangerous because they're cutting out a lot of enzymes that need that substance. But so I can't tell you how much of this you should eat or how much of that, but you want to eat it. And doctors don't get any training in nutrition practically, so they don't know much in this area. Anyway, I enjoy getting into fields that are not too crowded, because otherwise you're competing with millions of bright young people. And when you're my age, you don't think as fast. Anyway, so I'm always looking for to work in between fields. So I was trained as a biochemist, and but I was very interested in genetics. So I took every genetics course that Cornell or Caltech had. So I was working in between the two fields. It's called molecular biology now, but it involves genetic tools to sort out biochemistry.
In fact, I think it would be great if you actually spoke about what got you interested in nutrition, because I remember hearing the story about how I think one of your colleagues was doing research on mice, and you realized that folate deficiency leads to the same thing as chromosome breaks. Can you talk about that discovery?
Yeah. So, well, your DNA is your most precious thing. It's the blueprints for the whole organism. And you're constantly making energy, you add 4 electrons to oxygen, and you're home safe to water. And in the process, you get a lot of energy. So that's how we run all our muscles. Now, anyway, I started thinking about all this, and I realized that nutrition is sort of a key field in having a long life. Exercise too, you need to exercise. I just came from exercise, where I spend an hour lifting weights and doing things. Because otherwise you just decay. And so the reason nutrition is important is it's controlling and governing all your metabolism, because you need 40 different substances roughly. And so if you don't eat your greens, you don't get your magnesium. And if you need some calcium for your bones, and all these, some are components and some are turning genes on and off. Like vitamin D is my current enthusiasm, though I've retired finally. Vitamin D you get from ultraviolet light from the sun, converting a cholesterol derivative in your skin to vitamin D. So it's really a hormone, but it's also a vitamin. Now, if you don't get enough, you're really in trouble, because it's controlling, the hormone part is controlling thousands of genes. So, it also, serotonin is sort of a feel-good compound. And if you don't have enough vitamin D, your serotonin is low, and then you get a little depressed. So I used to take a taxi to work every day, And I've all the dark-skinned taxi drivers I've convinced to take vitamin D pill. Vitamin D pill costs you 3 cents, and it's controlling thousands of genes. Just from first principles, you know it has to be important. And of course, the body has this rationing system. If it's low in any of these 40 substances, what it does is put into the ones that are essential for immediate survival so you can reproduce, which is what nature cares about. But yeah. And a lot of these aging is sort of your metabolism is going wrong in various ways. You can go wrong because you don't exercise or you don't eat a good diet, but you don't want to survive on hot dogs and Cokes because you're not getting your magnesium, you're not getting your calcium, and those are two essential minerals. Anyway, people have been working on this for many years, so there's a lot of literature, and the work I've done has been mainly theoretical, the recent work on triage, because I just started thinking, what is an animal going to do when it runs out of magnesium? Well, it cuts out all the enzymes that need magnesium and puts them into DNA repair enzymes and things that are long-term. So if your DNA is getting mutated, you don't see that right away. It just shortens your life. So you can trade longevity for immediate survival. That's what nature's doing. So anyway, I postulated all this in a paper some years ago, and then Joyce McCann, who was a wonderful person in my lab, really smart. Anyway, she dived in and read the literature on one mineral and one vitamin, and vitamin K, which is involved in blood clotting, and I forget what. Anyway, I don't remember what it was, but we published some papers on that. And then I also put together what I call the CHORI Bar, because I was working at Children's Hospital Oakland Research Institute, which people shorten to CHORI. And so we had a number of papers on the CHORI Bar. And basically we took a bar and that tasted good, and it had all the vitamins and minerals that you needed. So it was a way of making up for the bad diets most Americans are eating. So a company licensed it from CHORI, and they sell it now. I think it's called Heal Right. Anyway, I don't make any money out of this, but I've kept commerce out of my career mostly, because you don't want people to say, "Oh, they're just doing it for money." And yeah, but so anyway, we showed this rationing was really, or Joyce showed it in my lab, and we wrote it up, that this rationing is built into your metabolism. So
and learning about that was actually the most incredible part for me, where I realized that, even though I might be young and I might think that, if I'm a little deficient in something, it doesn't really matter. But the fact that it's having these long-term consequences, and as you said, nature only cares about whether you can reproduce till the age of 30, 40, whatever it is. But beyond that, it doesn't care much. And a lot of these deficiencies is what could be causing diseases later in life. And as you said, you and Joyce McCann showed with vitamin K, for example, and vitamin D also being huge for that.
Yeah, no, the country is not doing very well in vitamin D. It's so important. This hormone, vitamin D hormone, is controlling thousands of genes. 50 different DNA repair enzymes are cruising along the DNA looking for mutation, for bumps that shouldn't be there due to some mutagen. And anyway, it all seemed very logical, and we've shown now that it's really built into metabolism. So I hope people, what's missing right now is the analytical part. So what would be nice is to have a finger prick of blood, which I get all the time to measure my cholesterol or whatever, and analyze, you're vitamin D deficient or you're deficient in this or that. You can measure key molecules. I think a mass spectrometer now is a complicated machine that costs $1 million or something like that, can look at thousands of chemicals in your blood. And so the next step is going to be simple ways for seeing who's deficient in what. And then we'll be able to tune up the metabolism.
I agree with you. I think being able to actually measure it, plus educating people through your work, is hopefully going to be the key. You mentioned something with vitamin D is really important, and the country is not doing so well. I think there is some research around how deficiencies, people who are more deficient in vitamin D, also getting more severe cases of COVID-19, for example. Did you look into this at all, the relationship between vitamin D and COVID-19?
No, I haven't done that. The virologists are all working in that area. So that's a little out of my expertise. Plus, I'm so old now, I've retired from Berkeley. I used to teach at University of California at Berkeley, and I was at Children's Hospital. And anyway, I haven't moved very many times, but over a long lifetime, you get different jobs. So, but no, I think that's the future. You'll get a finger prick of blood, you put it in a mass spec or something, and be able to say, you're low in this and you're low in that, tune up. And now you can buy vitamin pills. Vitamin D costs 3 cents a pill or something like that. My wife and I, she's pretty old also, every morning we take a batch of pills, or with the meal, I get a little pill container and pop a lot of pills. So trying to make sure that I'm sufficient in everything.
So what is your diet look like, and what pills do you supplement with?
Well, I have an Italian wife, and we've been married 61 years. So I eat a very Mediterranean diet, lots of veggies and greens and lots of fish. And we eat meat. I eat meat also, but in moderation. So it's also complicated, but I think this is one principle that's going to be true, and people are going to develop analytical methods so you know how you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, you're also such a great living example, right? Where you're about to turn 93 in December, and you were working almost up to like maybe a few years ago, and if you've been taking care of your diet and exercising, so it just shows that those things go such a long way.
Well, exercise is important, keeps your mitochondria in good shape. Mitochondria, the little energy particles in every cell that produce the ATP, which is the molecule that has a lot of energy in it and powers your metabolism. Anyway, I'm having fun.
That's so good. So you mentioned the CHORI Bar, and I know you started working on it because you were thinking about just obesity, which has been on the rise. And you mentioned that obese people, one of the reasons they're always hungry is because obviously poor diet, which is not giving them the essential vitamins and minerals you need. And through the work you did, you showed some pretty good results on obese people eating these CHORI bars, where I think asthma went down, which looks different in people with obesity, and also
there's a special kind of asthma in obese people. And
what is the kind? What's the difference?
It's a variety of asthma, but it's just a little different. It's due to bad diets. So I discussed that in one scientific paper. It's hard for me to remember which paper I did when, but anyway, I've published over 500 scientific papers, and I've wandered around lots of fields.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you came up with the Ames test as well, which detected carcinogens in children's pajamas and hair dyes, which, I mean, that is such incredible work.
Well, the method was relatively simple to do. You mutate bacteria and you see a colony on a petri plate. So this is a way of detecting mutagens. And a mutagen is something that changes your DNA. So you don't want to get too many of those. And so I spent quite a few years on metabolism and why the body has the job of making ATP, which is the high energy molecule that works your muscles and that works your brain. So you really need to be getting all this energy made. On the other hand, part of that system is adding electrons to oxygen. So you make superoxide, which isn't so good for you, and you make singlet oxygen. I mean, there are lots of bad molecules that are side products of making good molecules. And so I got interest in that whole area. How does the cell regulate these and all of that?
Of the 40 essential micronutrients, vitamins and minerals, would you say there are few, and we've obviously talked about vitamin D, but would you say there are a few that are absolutely key and more so than some of the other ones?
Well, you need them all. If you're deficient in any vitamin, you're going to die, or essential mineral. And very few people are completely deficient. It's mostly a moderate deficiency. But that's, I think, aging it faster.
Even a little bit, a moderate deficiency, your work has shown that it ages you faster.
Yeah. So what we showed was built in this rationing was built into metabolism and for a few vitamins. And I think it's a general principle.
As I'm curious, as you've aged, because you still seem very sharp and been doing work. Is there something about your lifestyle that you changed over the years?
Well, now that I'm really old, I do a lot more reading. I always read a lot, and then science is just coming like a fire hose of information. It's so to keep up with science is really a full-time job, and you can't keep up with all the types of science, but the molecular biology area, I've try and keep up with that, but I don't read a lot of scientific papers anymore.
Are you aware of all the research being done around trying to reverse aging and reverse some of the diseases of aging?
Yeah, I've read some of that, but I can't say I'm an expert on it. But what I've contributed to the aging field is this triage idea.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, that's probably the best we have so far, that we can actually control our vitamin, mineral intake, our nutrition, our exercise. And I think some of the other work that's being done is looking at just longevity pathways in terms of how those can be activated through the form of certain drugs and certain pills and try to reverse some of the diseases of aging. But can you talk about, I guess, zinc specifically? Because you did mention earlier, nobody thinks about zinc, but it's really important. What did your work show around what deficiency in zinc can lead to?
Well, one, zinc fingers, which are the body's ways of detecting, making zinc fingers, which does various things in the body. Well, then that's 2,000 enzymes that you're disabling because those enzymes need zinc to work. So science goes so fast that I think in the next decade we'll know how to do all this, how to tell you tune up your metabolism.
Do you think there's a case where, say, people don't eat a good diet? It's all the sugar that people are consuming in America. There's obesity, but then if somehow in 10 years or so we come up with ways to reverse the damage, what's your take on? Do you think that's going to entirely be able to eliminate the damage, or do you always need?
No, you may have caused some damage, and that's not easy to eliminate. They're DNA repair enzymes, but a lot gets through and causes trouble later on. Yeah, it's nutrition. Everybody throws up their hands because it's so complicated, but it's I'm adding a little bit of theoretical work, but it should really help.
What do you think is the complicated part about it? Is it that people react differently to different foods? Is it personalized? Is there a personalized component? Is it our genes? Like, what is the most complex part about nutrition?
Well, metabolism is just really complicated.
Well, I guess just a few last questions I have for you. One, you said you've been following the field of a little bit around molecular biology. Is there something that you think is most exciting right now around the work that's being done or the future?
The big advance was in people who Watson and Crick figured out that why DNA has the structure it has, and that was a blockbuster. But there've been so many discoveries. We know that the DNA makes RNA, and then that goes into cells and does some chemical work in making a protein. Yeah.
That's great. And then I think last question, you said you've switched your area of research every 10, 15 years. Do you have any advice for new scientists or just younger folks in general?
I was never a straight A student in school, but I had a lot of creativity, and that was enough to have a good career. And so science is very competitive, but it's also cooperative. You know a guy in England who's doing similar work, and if you get together, you can make a big advance. So that's what you're doing all the time, is collaborating with people to solve a problem that you can't do alone. And so it's a wonderful field to be in. And I know people all over the world, and they know me from my work. Yeah.
I agree. It's amazing. I think scientists are discovering the truth, or at least the best truth we have, and helping us make advances and progress. So it is good.
Yeah. So anyway, I've enjoyed my life, and hopefully have a few more years left.
No, I mean, absolutely. At least to me, you seem still very sharp. You said you've been exercising, so I hope so too. You've made such a great contribution to humanity. So yes, thank you for all the work.
Hi again, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the episode and learned from it. If so, please show some support by subscribing to my YouTube channel, Live Longer World, liking the video, sharing the podcast, and leaving a review on Apple Podcasts. If you want to dive into these topics further and receive extensive show notes and transcripts from each episode, you can sign up to be a premium subscriber at livelongerworld.com/premium. To be notified of upcoming podcast releases, sign up on my website at livelongerworld.com, follow me on Twitter at livelongerworld, and Instagram at longevityfuture. Thanks for listening, stay in good health, and I'll catch you soon.